You ready for this?
Gonna be fun.
You will not stand in my way.
Frostborn. Hunger. This pleases me.
I do not fear you, mortal.
Your soul shall be mine.
Don't make me laugh.
Needs a brew? Oh, I do. Feel a shredding, baby. Let the battle begin.
So hello and welcome to the 64th episode of the Nexus Trolls, a podcast all about Heroes of the Storm, part of the Trolls GG Entertainment Network. I'm your host, Linus Dazkilius, and I'm joined today, as always, by my co-host, Mystic. Mystic, how is it going, sir?
It's going pretty good.
We got a patch today, thank God, because we didn't have much to talk about, but the patch dropped what, 4 or 5 hours ago, it feels like, not even like that even. So have you had a chance to look over it so we can analyze it today?
I've had a chance to look around. There's some few interesting changes.
Yeah, I think so as well. I can't wait to talk about it. We also had the first week of HGC last week, too. And because we've kicked LiQuiud off the show officially, we brought Bahgz on, who's a host of Troll and HGC and the Weekly Blizz, to help us get through that segment and talk a little bit more about HGC knowledge. Bahgz, welcome to the show, bud.
Hey, man, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to have taken LiQiuD's spot. You know, I always thought he was the weak link of the show. And, you know, it's important to be punctual and have great attendance, you know, and that's my number one quality.
Yeah, we voted him off the island. We made it official. So Bahgz is auditioning for LiQiuD's spot. Just so everyone knows, before like anyone actually is like, oh crap, LiQiuD's not on the show anymore. We're just kidding. LiQiuD's actually sick today. He's not feeling the greatest. So he had the day off of both Troll and HGC as well as the Nexus Trolls. So we do expect LiQiuD to be back next week. LiQiuD, get better, bud. But we do have a great show today. As I mentioned, we're going to talk about HEC recap. That's going to be Bahgz' department there. We're going to talk about some news. Heroes of the Dorm was announced. We're going to talk about the patch notes for the patch that just dropped today. And Mystic's going to be returning with a shakedown near the end of the show as well. But before we start the show, we want to thank all of our patrons over at patreon.com/trollsgg. And we had a new patron last week, Matt R. Thank you so much for your support. If anyone is looking to support the show, you can do so over there, patreon.com/trollsgg. Thank you all for your support. And our troll of the week this week, Fiddle DD, is LiQiuD. LiQiuD, I know that he couldn't make it, and I figured, you know what, it's a perfect time. Since you're no longer officially a host, we can actually make you the troll of the week now for all your hard work you do for the Trolls GGG community. So LiQiuD, you are officially the troll of the week. Hat tip to you, sir. And with that, let's get into the news.
Someday, this will make a great story.
So Heroes of the Dorm was announced. It's on Twitch and MLG.com this year and not on Facebook. I hear the silent masses cheering in the background. Are you guys excited for this change?
I mentioned this earlier on trolling. This actually, it's so I'm sure Facebook paid Blizzard a substantial amount of Facebook money to get their product on Facebook Lives. Trent mentioned that Paladins is streamed on Facebook, and it's not a platform where people are you're not going to draw passerby traffic. Whereas Twitch, you say you, I don't know, you're just like, hey, why is Heroes like the 4th most watched game right now? And you'll click it and you'll find out why. You're going to generate some passive, or just casual Heroes fans that are, usually watch Heroes streams, but I don't know, don't pay attention to the HGC stream. You have that opportunity to generate just more casual viewers than, say, on Facebook, where you're literally only going to get viewers that are like going out of their way to watch it on Facebook.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like not only was Facebook felt like the streaming quality was not quite as great as it typically is on Twitch, but like that's where the audience is. I understand they're trying to open up new audiences, and that was probably part of the Facebook ploy, but it's nice to see it back on Twitch again. Mystic, are you going to be watching? Like, so that's the thing too. Like last year, I felt bad. I didn't get a chance to watch nearly as much as I hoped to because it's just not a platform that I like. I don't really, I don't have a really active Facebook account or anything, so I didn't get a really good chance to watch it. So, Mystic, are you happy that it's going to be on Twitch now?
Yeah, I'm really happy that it's going to be back on Twitch. I kind of wanted to watch it last time on Facebook, but since Facebook isn't like super made for something like that, the quality wasn't as good, so I decided not to watch it last time.
Yeah, so thankfully it's back where it should be, and we're all looking forward to it. If you're interested in participating, university students, you have to be an actively enrolled university student, that you can compete for tuition and other prizes. Registration's open until February the 3rd. It's open already. The season plays from February 5th to March 8th. And these teams are going to be separated into regions of 12 to 16 teams. I guess it depends on how much participation there is. And the top seeded teams from the season play are going to get seeded into the round of 64, which is where like the action actually starts. March 11th, there's also a special regional championship. So all the regions are going to have a single elimination tournament, and they can earn BattleNet balance, whatever that means. And the winner of each of those tournaments is going to be automatically seeded into the round of 64. And then March 28th to April 19th is the bracket play for the round of 64. It's all going to be broadcast on Twitch, and that's where things, like I said, are going to get exciting. And then finally, the LAN event, the LAN finale, the dates to be determined for the Heroic 4 is going to be sometime after April 19th. So we've got an awesome amateur tournament to watch coming up in February, March. You guys excited? Bahgz, I know you must be.
I'm really excited. Heroes of the Dorm is what got me into Heroes Esports for sure, and well, part of the way into it. It's what got me playing Heroes. It's really hype. I'm also coming from a traditional sports background. I was always a big March Madness fan. So like the NCAA tournament is just always really exciting to me in that respect. Filling out your bracket. I know last year Gwaz and I, we did the Weekly Blizz bracket challenge, and we mailed out a Stitches plushie to the winner of that. That was really fun. So I'm very, very excited for Here's the Dorm coming back. And I'm kind of curious as to where the Heroic 4 will be. Maybe it might be within reason to make a trip out there if possible, if it's, I get enough notice in advance as to when and where this is going to be.
Where was it last time? It was in Las Vegas, right?
Las Vegas. The year before it was in Seattle where the Seahawks play. I forget the name of the arena. Comerica? No.
Are we expecting it to be in the new Blizzard arena? Is that even open yet? I don't know too much about it.
It's possibly. I just don't know how big the live attendance has been in the past, and I know that the Blizzard arena only holds a few hundred. So I don't know how much they anticipate, like how big of a live audience they anticipate getting. I know the Blizzard arena isn't huge. So I had a thought and I completely lost it.
Well,
I'll let you carry on and I'll circle back to it
while you're getting
when appropriate.
That thought back, I got a very important question for Mystic.
Okay.
Mystic, are you putting in a team this year?
I don't think so. I mean, besides all the college stuff that I need to be doing, I don't find like a whole lot of people out here playing Heroes of the Storm. It's mainly League of Legends and like Dota around here.
Well, maybe putting out like a little email blast or something, or I'm not sure what kind of internal things you guys have. You might find a couple other players, because hey, that's a nice little nugget there, getting some tuition paid for and taking part in a pretty damn cool event too. Yeah, I was expecting you to at least say maybe like lead me on here a little bit, Mystic. I want to have like I'll be sitting there rooting for you. If you go into it and you get to the LAN event, I will fly out to the LAN event no matter where it is to watch it.
I mean, I would like to, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
you got to go chase that tuition money, Mystic, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's tough. I mean we had Stixa on the show. I don't know, probably 4 or 5 months ago, and he took part in Heroes of the Dorm, and he's he's enrolled actually just down the road from where I live at a smaller university. He was, and he was saying that he was kind of surprised with the traction it got. He just kind of put it out there and found a few people, and they put a team together. And next thing you knew, he was in Heroes of the Dorm. I can't remember how far they made it, but they did pretty decent. I think they might have actually made it to the round of 64, or like just shy of that. So hey, man, you never know. And if you like playing Heroes of the Storm and you're interested maybe in playing this, like this is a good venue to kind of get into that outlet. But that being said, we also had another cool little announcement come out of Blizzard's Twitter, and I guess it's an announcement of an announcement because it was one of their little leaks of a hero reveal. Now, there's been 2 tweets so far. If you're listening to this in VOD, or you're watching the VOD, or you're listening to this after the fact, it's probably already announced who the hero is, because I imagine we're going to figure it out tomorrow. But if you go over to Blizz Heroes Twitter account, you'll actually see one of the tweets that they put out recently today, kind of like the silhouette of someone within like this green crystal. What do you guys think this is going to be? Who do you expect to come out of this? I know, Bahgz, you used to play World of Warcraft, or maybe still do. It has that kind of Warcrafty feel to it. Is there anyone you expect to pop out of that crystal into the Nexus?
I think this is going to be another one of those. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the most recent tweet right now, and I think it's going to be one of those curveballs that Blizzard throws that kind of like fools everyone, almost like the turns out that was just Diablo in the Hanamir video type thing. Because like it does feel like the Fel crystal that Illidan was stuck in and busted out of by Gul'dan, and you know, a lot of people are saying Maeve, and I'm looking at this and the silhouette in there, and it's just I don't know, from this angle, like the figure doesn't, it's like, I don't know, it's doing that thing where it's like going up, I don't know,
kind of like,
I don't know, the posture of it does,
right? Yeah, it doesn't seem very Maiev like. Right. I mean, that is the common theory, is that it's Maiev, because the Illidan and the crystal, I didn't play World of Warcraft, but I guess there's some portion of it where she breaks Illidan out of that Fel crystal, I guess, or am I totally off base here? But either way, like Maiev's very entwined with the Illidan storyline, so it would make sense. She was his jailer. Yes. For thousands of years. So does that mean, are we getting Torbjorn or Reinhardt then?
Yeah, basically. That's like, we're just going to get thrown for a loop, and that's just like a little green rock on like someone's boot or something, right? Turns out.
You know what, though? Last reveal, it was kind of like this, where you saw like the silhouette in the background was, I think, the Dark Portal with Garrosh coming through. And a lot of people, I mean, we talked about on the show too, and I think the kind of prevailing theory was Garrosh, and it turned out to be Garrosh. So once you get, you know, Twitter and Reddit to work, they tend to come up with pretty solid theories with like sound ideas. And the only time I think we really got thrown for a curve was the Hanamura 3 scratches, when everyone was like, oh, it's Deathwing or whatever. But like you said, it was only Diablo, right? But generally, I think people are pretty close. So other than Maiev, any other guesses of who it might be, assuming it's something Warcrafty? I'm assuming maybe a demon or a demon lord, maybe? Kil'jaeden or Mal'Ganis, perhaps?
Yeah, there were theories about that being thrown around. I mean, I think it's Maiev as well, but I've learned to not trust teasers as much anymore, just because of all that, you know, stuff. So I'm just like, well, what we're looking at could be Maiev, but the new hero could be the one trapped in the crystal, right? And it could be anything, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, like Maiev, Kil'jaeden, Mal'Ganis, they're all very popular Warcraft heroes that people have been clamoring to come into the Nexus. You know, other than your Reinhardts and Deathwings, I think they're definitely amongst the tops of ones that people expect to come in eventually. So even if they don't come within the next couple of weeks, I imagine we'll see them within the next couple of years.
Here's a small theory. Like, this is kind of going out there a little bit, but it could even be there's these bug-like creatures in World of Warcraft called the Klaxi, and they're usually stuck in amber, or they were, and they were introduced in Pandaria. And then, so what eventually happens was like an adventurer comes out around and like frees them, and it could even be that, like the picture of the person that we're looking at could just be an adventurer, and they free this Klaxi hero or something.
Oh man, well,
I dig that.
I feel like after this one, we'll know if Blizzard is trying to generally be that kind of tricky when they do these like little leaks, because like I said, if the Garrosh one was fairly straightforward, it ended up being Garrosh, and this one, if this ends up being Maiev, I think there's going to be a lot more backing to any of these Twitter and Reddit theories the next time something like this comes along, because we're still kind of scarred from that Diablo Hanamura sequence. But I feel like that's going to become like a memory very quickly as soon as we have a few in a row that are more reliably predictable. But I don't think there's too much more to say about that one. So let's move on, because we had a pretty busy week in HGC. Bahgz, you want to tell us about the first week? What happened? Like, what surprised you? What's going on in HGC these days?
So we had the first week of HGC this past week, and it was a great first week. There were some surprises. The biggest in particular was KSV Black, which is the reigning world champions, as well as the winners of Gold Club World Cup, which is basically the big tournament that's conducted during the off season. They lost 3-0 to Tempest, which is notoriously the third best team in Korea. Also the only Korean team to lose to a North American team last year. So wrap your brain around that. I can't. They lost to them 3-0. They were swept handily. As well, we got a 34-minute match on Volskaya, which the internet blew up about, with Heroes Hearth and Tempo Storm. The community is not a huge fan of the Volskaya map in general, and I guess seeing it as a competitive map, they're not happy about it, which I don't really get, because it's either that or Warhead that ends in like less than 10 minutes. So it's just pick one and deal with it until we have 9 really strong structured maps. That being said, Team Liquid over in EU looking a lot better than I expected. In NA, I was surprised Heroes Hearth were as competitive with Tempo as they were, but for the most part, NA kind of went. I don't know, as expected. The biggest thing is to looking ahead this week. We have some really marquee matchups to look forward to. On Friday, we've got Tempo Storm and Team 12 at 5 p.m. That's kind of like the highlight match of the week. As well, we have Fnatic playing Method, which is the old Team Expert, and Method looked really good this last weekend, and Fnatic has looked a little shaky. So we can look forward to those two teams duking it out to determine kind of like the 2 seed in the EU. And then come Sunday, we have Team Freedom versus Tempo Storm, which will be like the 2 teams that are jockeying for 2-3 all season probably. I mean, it's still early to kind of like set those numbers in stone, but they're just really competitive matchups that we get to look forward to, as well as we get Method versus Dignitas, and we get to see how good this new how far ahead, how much better than the rest of the region is this new Dignitas roster. Questions like that get answered this weekend, so it's going to be really exciting in that respect.
I have so many questions for you. I'm gonna start. Okay, last year, first HGC season, Team 8, now Team 12, was a Roll 20 for a little while there too. They came in not expecting to do very well. At least most people didn't expect them to do very well, and they ended up becoming by the end of the season the top team, arguably, in NA. Now, you're telling me, like, from what you're saying there, you expect certain teams to be jockeying for like 2-3, but are there any chances of like maybe one of the new teams like LFM or Heroes Hearth pulling that kind of rise to the top? Or are we in a point now where everything's just so known about how good all the players are, how good all the organizations are, how they all mesh together, that things are just a lot more predictable than they used to be?
So the scene is certainly a lot more stable than it was. It's less likely to get upstarts like that. Like Expert would be another one that kind of mirrored how Team 8 had that meteoric rise through the season last year. That's a lot less likely to happen this season. And you saw it a bit in phase 2 as well, where like Zealots had probably performed the best above expectations last year in phase 2. And we might get something similar to that this year, but it's very, very unlikely to see a team like Team Export or Team 8 that kind of comes out of nowhere and performs extremely well. Just because the foundation has been set, the structure of play is established. These teams are practicing a lot more than they ever were. The rosters are stuck together, and for almost 6 months at a time. So it's just a pecking order is kind of already determined, I guess, so to speak. There are going to be some surprises because of the roster changes. Like, there are rumblings that Heroes Hearth might be the 4th best team in North America, and this is a team that qualified from the amateur division. So there is room for surprises, but I would say, with complete confidence, don't expect to see another scenario where you get a team that was expected to get last place, or Team Freedom's also a good example. A team that was expected to get 6th or 7th place to rise up to the heights that they rose to at the end of the seasons.
Good to note. Another question that cropped up while you were doing your initial diatribe there too was talking about Volskaya. I kind of wanted to explore that a little bit more since we've got a little bit of time today. How much play did Volskaya get? Was it just the one really long 35-minute game, or was it played on multiple, like for multiple games?
It was played at least twice off the top of my head, possibly 3 or 4 times, maybe more. Let me pull, if you
yeah, sure.
If you want to cover for 5 seconds, I'm going to mute myself and I'll pull up that stat.
Yeah,
it was played a lot more than I expected. Like Warhead was almost never played. Volskaya was played consistently.
You're telling me to cover for you to keep talking. I'm like getting ready to roll here. I'm going to start talking for a minute or two. I was like waiting for you to press that mute button, but here I go covering. So Volskaya. One thing that we knew coming into just like the new year, I mean, since we've seen it, we haven't seen it competitive yet, is that the objective is supposedly not very strong. I mean, we've all seen it in practice. It's not a very good sieging mechanic. It doesn't do a lot of tower damage. It doesn't do anything extraordinarily well. So one thing that we might have been able to predict is the fact that the games would be longer. And I guess the question that I was looking to see is if the other games that were played on Volskaya were as long, and if it's because of the way the objective works. So what do you think about that, Bahgz? Did I cover long enough?
You did. So Volskaya was played 4 times this past weekend. Now that's out of 106 matches, so it's a really small percent. But that's throughout the world. That's China, Korea, North America, and EU. So it was played 4 times. Surprisingly, Bahgz was only played once. So that is now kind of like the low man on the totem pole. The beautiful thing about Master League is you can filter the stats based on the region. So in China, it wasn't played at all, because now I took China out of the equation, and it was still only played 4 times out of 66 matches. So your stats get a little bit better. And let's see if we take Korea out. If you take Korea out, Korea didn't play it at all. So Volskaya was played between North America and Europe. Volskaya was played 4 times out of 45 matches. Similarly to Towers of Doom and Cursed Hollow, which were played 3 and 4 times respectively. So
it seems like the map pool that everyone's kind of going with is fairly set in what the pros like to play if there's these specific maps that aren't getting played too often. So is that probably we're going to see not very much of these like outliers going throughout the HCC season?
Yeah. So there are the pros have maps that kind of play more standard, so to speak. They're a little more vanilla, and the better teams are almost always going to go there, and you're only going to go to the maps that are played less, specifically when a weaker team's going to try and see if they can throw a stronger team off their game by going to a map that allows for a little more, I don't want to say RNG, but a little more variance in results.
Okay, so it's the surprise cheese strat map, kind of like Warhead, I guess, used to be known as last season. Okay, the other thing that kind of came out of HGC, and this was put on Reddit, and one of the higher upvoted Reddit posts over the past week, was the fact that Genji, Greymane, Hanzo, Lucio, and ETC were picked over and over and over again throughout the week of HGC. Now, a lot of people are saying, hey, this is not good for the game. It's boring. It makes HGC really repetitive. What are your thoughts on this, Bahgz? I mean, there was a counter post to this saying that you're always going to have 3 to 5 heroes, the 90% pick rate, and they gave, like, for Master League information over the past season, kind of what you were getting, and there were always the 3 or 4 heroes that were picked the vast majority of the time. Is it just the way that it works, and just people are putting a spotlight on it now, or is it more noticeable than usual?
It's it's always been that. I fall in the camp where it's always going to be that way, and it's always been that way. So coming from a WoW background, it was they're always trying to balance, like, so each class has three specializations, 3 specs they call them, that you can talent into, and hardcore raiders are always going to talent into the specialization that does the most damage, or tanks the best, or heals the best, right? And it's Blizzard's job to try and balance it so that they all can kind of basically do the same amount, so that that all the specializations are being played. But if something has a margin, like, is just marginally better, even by like just a point whatever percent, someone who is looking for that competitive edge is always going to going that route. Translating that over to heroes, excuse me. If a hero is just even marginally better than another, it's like they're always going to choose that. So it's very rare that you're gonna. It's impossible to have a scenario where every hero is being played, and there are always going to be certain heroes that are better than others. I understand why people get tired of seeing a hero like Greymane, which has been in the competitive meta essentially since he's been released, and as well as Genji, but that is, I guess, more of a problem with their kit as opposed to like just the way that they can kind of do everything. I don't know. If you're looking for variety, you're going to find that in the later picks in a draft, and that's just not at the beginning. The most competitive heroes are going to get picked in the beginning. If Blizzard decides to add, say, a 3rd ban to the draft, we might see some more variety, and the competitive scene is asking for a 3rd ban to allow for some more variety in drafts and some interesting play styles and more interesting drafts. But Blizzard doesn't feel that the hero pool in the game is there yet to make that work.
I feel like we've got quite a few heroes. Mystic, are there any League of Legends analogies you can come up with here? Do they have any sort of situations where, I mean, I don't follow League of Legends. Do they have 3rd bans, or have they implemented this in the past? Because we know that heroes does, tend to borrow ideas from League of Legends from time to time.
Well, as far as I know, like, the League of Legends scene has had like 3 bans on either side for like the longest time. And then they increased the ban size when the hero pool went, or I guess champion pool went up to like 130 or so, or 140, something along those lines. But it was a lot larger before they actually increased the ban pool. Yeah. For a game like this, with the hero size right now, I'd say, yeah, we are on the cusp of getting another ban. I could see arguments for both sides, but yeah.
Well, I feel like it's not the situation now like it might have been a year or even 2 ago when you first started seeing more of the competitive scene emerge, where you can just ban 6 supports and have like no supports to play, right? Like, there are enough heroes fulfilling most roles that you should have alternatives, and not to mention it'll also make drafting more interesting too, because you have to take that extra step into account. Now, is there a reason that Blizzard would shy away from this? Is it just a fact of the hero pool, or is it making the drafts too long? Like, what are the considerations here? Like, why don't they listen to the heroes, if that's not the heroes, the competitive pros, if that's what they're asking for, Bahgz? Like, why don't they just implement this? So I mean, you argued for the opposite of this, but it's Blizzard's concerns are there aren't enough. Literally, this is the concern they have. There aren't enough supports in the game that supports can get choked out if they go to 6 bans. And I believe they're not satisfied with there are a couple of supports they feel like just aren't strong enough so that if they went to 6 bans, you would get choked out of whatever role
satisfactory supports.
Gotcha. Well, maybe, like Mystic says, we're on the cusp of getting there.
So there are rumors, not to interrupt you, but there are rumors that they may consider adding the third ban for phase 2, so the second half of the season.
That'd be cool. I think obviously Blizzard's pretty good at listing. They've got the summits, and I'm sure they probably heard a lot of third ban talk at the time. Well, another thing they might be a little hesitant to implement a third ban for is because right now the bans are mirrored in-game, whereas they'd have to put in third bans. Well, maybe they wouldn't have to, but they likely would like to have a third ban in the game as well as in competitive as well. So maybe it's just an implementation issue as well from a technical standpoint. Okay, so let's look at these 5 heroes a little bit more in depth that we saw a lot of at HGC. And actually, one point I quickly wanted to raise as well is that a lot of people were saying these 5 heroes were like, picked over and over again. But I think I saw a stat like 70% of the heroes were actually played in the tournaments over last week too. So there was a bit of diversity. It's not like these are the only 5 heroes you're seeing every match. Well, maybe you are seeing these 5 every match, but like Bahgz is saying, like you look a little bit deeper into the drafts and you are getting a lot more variety. And I think that's a pretty healthy number to be looking at. It's not necessarily the top picked heroes, but seeing how many of the heroes from the whole hero pool are actually being selected and played competitively. So the 5 heroes, again, Genji, Greymane, Hanzo, Lucio, EDC. I want to take a look at each one and just talk about like why they're so popular in the competitive scene. Starting with Genji. Mystic, I've seen you work wonders with Genji, and you are a higher skilled player than I am. Why is Genji so prioritized? Is it the obvious thing? He's just so mobile, or is there more to him than that?
He's banned for multiple reasons. So for one, he does quite a bit of damage. For 2, like you said, he's really mobile and does, a lot of just damage just all around, right? So he's ranged. He can do a lot of like structure damage or like upfront burst damage with Shingon. And then he has his Dragon Blade, right? A lot of AoE damage as well. And then so the third reason is that he's a counter to Hanzo, and Hanzo is really prevalent in this meta right now.
So what happened with Hanzo? He got released. I remember playing at BlizzCon, everyone was like, he's clunky, he doesn't feel finished. He came out, people said he's clunky, he doesn't feel finished, he feels underpowered. I think he even released with a pretty poor win rate. Suddenly a couple buffs later, pros get their hands on him. Now he's OP. I'm seeing him banned every single game whenever I play in game in a draft environment. Like, where did Hanzo come from? Why is he so powerful all of a sudden? Is it his scatter arrow build? Is that what's going on here?
So Hanzo, when he first came out, he was all right. He wasn't like super strong. And then so Blizzard, saw the responses, and then they were just like, all right, we're just going to buff him, right? They buffed him to the point where he was usable and he had a place. He had a scatter arrow build, which would do really good in PvE moments, and his Q build wasn't bad either. Like, it was actually pretty good. But then, people are just like, oh, Hanzo's still underpowered. His Dragon Strike sucks and stuff like that. So Blizzard continued to buff him, and they also gave him sharpened arrowheads on 7, which is really, really, really strong talent. And then that's why that's why I believe pros and stuff are picking him up, because that talent reduces armor. It makes every one of his auto attacks hit really hard. It's almost like a spell. And with Redemption, it comes out really, really fast.
Bahgz, how are you seeing Hanzo played? Was he being played in the way you'd expect? Or was he just raw damage? Was he more of like a finisher, like a little bit with adding a little bit mobility with his D? Like what kind of role was Hanzo filling in HGC this week?
He's essentially, Trent made some good points about how he has a lot of capabilities for clearing PvE. So like with wave clear, clearing camps, clearing bosses, clearing immortals on BOE. But he's also essentially, even though he plays much more clunkily, and I think he plays really clunky, and differently than Valley, he's essentially replaced Valet in the meta. Now, if you go through Master League, Valet was heavily involved in the meta up until the this HGC season started. Now, obviously, nothing changed with her. She hasn't had any changes recently, but Hanzo was released, and he supplanted her. He does her job better. His trait is, his strafe, except it goes, over walls, and he's got incredible range, and he's got burst, and he just like blows away camps with his scatter arrow, and again he's got the talent where he can lower people's armor by 25. So what's interesting about that though is he's not, from what I've noticed. Now, some people in Twitch chat mentioned that he was played by the carries in Korea, but it seems like he's being played by a lot of the flexes in North America and EU instead of the carry players, where the carry players typically played Vala. But it seems like he supplanted the Vala in a lot of comps.
Yeah, he's a more complex hero to play with, a lot more complex interaction. So maybe that's why he's been falling into, I guess, to the flex role, quote unquote, in North America. So we've already touched on it a little bit, but Greymane's a good old tried and true hero too. He's one of my personal favorites to play with, and one of the heroes that I feel most comfortable with. Mystic, why has Greymane been so good? I think Bahgz might have hit it on the head there when he mentioned, like, kits being an issue. Is Greymane's kit just that good?
Greymane's kit is is a big factor of it, because he has range form, he has a melee form, and he's overall good in almost any situation. But I feel like he serviced a lot more recently because of Hanzo, actually. Greymane is a really good counter to Hanzo, because Hanzo is weak to dive, and Greymane can, get in there, do a lot of burst damage really quick. Along with that, I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, well, I mean, Greymane, to me, the things that have always shined from him is that he can do damage as a ranged assassin very well with his cocktail build. You can throw out a ton of damage, especially after Gilnean cocktail quest is completed. Whatever it's called, maybe it's not the name of it, is it 7? But then also he's the gap closer. He can reposition even with his ultimate if you go for the throat. He's got a really great engage as well if you go for his cursed bullet. You can chunk a tank 40% of their health if they're full before you jump in and do the rest of your damage on whatever your target is. Plus, he gets in there, unlike your Artanises or your Sonias of the world, he's in there for a few, 5 seconds, I guess, and he can back out. He can swipe to make a little bit of distance, then he can back out and pretty much get to safety. I mean, he does have that 5-second window, which is, I guess, where the counterplay comes in. However, that seems like a pretty powerful combination of abilities right there.
Mm-hmm.
Next on the list is Lucio. Now, supports got nerfed almost across the board not too long ago, and Lucio seems to kind of be filtering to the top of the pile here as one of the stronger supports to shake out, and the pros have identified that. Kaldor, infamously a couple weeks ago, tweeted out that that he's doing really well in scrims, and lo and behold, he's doing well at HGC as well, at least in terms of pick rate. I'm not sure what his win percentage is. But what is going on with Lucio here, Bahgz? What are you seeing? Why is everyone picking Lucio?
So I'm not a high-level player by any stretch of the imagination, but his as someone who plays Lucio in Hero League when I have to support, he brings a lot to the table in that his movement speed is incredible as far as rotating, making rotations, moving from lane to lane, acquiring ganks, as well as his sound barrier is really strong if well timed. So he also has the displacement, the wall riding, it makes him, he's really slippery. He has a lot of factors in his favor, as well as the supports that supplanted him in the meta. Like, so when he initially came out, he was really, really strong, and we saw him a lot in the competitive meta. And then he was nerfed, and he disappeared, as well as Uther was buffed, and Rhaegar was always strong, and Oriel was getting a lot of play. And then Uther's, I believe Uther's been nerfed, and Rhaegar has been nerfed, and it's Lucio's gone. He got a small buff? I can't remember. They did tweak him, but he's been relatively untouched. And I guess it was one of those situations where he was not quite as good as them, but real close. And now that he has, the meta has shifted in such a way, those characters have been tuned in such a way that he is now just a hair or so better than them, and that's part of the reason why we're seeing him.
Yeah, for me, whenever I'm looking at a support, and when I played Chair League in the past Chair League season, I was a support main. The things that we always looked for were being able to save someone in that clutch moment, being able to do that as either like an Uther or Rhaegar, Lucio, the sound barrier, right? Like just that moment where you can just save the person outright. Volume of heals is another important bit too, right? Like just making sure that you could heal up a team in that kind of team fight scenario, especially when there's like a long sustained fight going on, or having some sort of form of CC too, or mobility in this case with Lucio. And he does seem to be able to fulfill all those roles quite admirably too. Is that why we're seeing him there, Mystic, being top of the pile? I mean, it seems like Uther and Rhaegar have fallen off a little bit, and because of that, we're lacking that kind of save you in that clutch moment support, and Lucio seems to be filling that role.
Yeah, he basically does an Uther Divine Shield to just everybody, except, obviously it doesn't cleanse you of stuff, but it allows any of your squishies that are under attack. Now they just have a huge shield, so that disables a lot of burst potential right there. Not to mention the fact that, like Bahgz said, the rotation speed and the movement speed that Lucio gives is actually really huge and competitive, because that huge movement speed boost allows you to reposition, allows you to escape, and just position very, very easily.
Well, essentially, 20% movement speed boost, if you think about it as the other team being 20% slower than you, that's like the whole other team being under a Jaina Frost effect, right? So that's a pretty powerful mobility advantage. And if we're looking at all these heroes today that we're talking about, Genji, Hanzo, Greymane, Lucio, and ETC, which we're going to talk about in a second, the one common factor here is they're all very mobile. And maybe that's one of the common factors. You need that mobility in competitive play to make sure that you can either peel, catch a hero, gank, or save somebody, right? And that seems to be kind of the overwhelming factor here of what's important. I mean, one of the reasons that ETC is back in the meta again. Now, ETC is one of those funny ones because he got nerfed, I don't know, 8 months ago or so. He disappeared for a while, but he's been largely untouched, and suddenly he's back again. I mean, maybe not suddenly, because it's been for a bit now, but still, like, why is ETC one of the highest prioritized, if not the highest prioritized tank, Mystic?
I believe that's because, well, for the most part of the reason is that Anubarak was severely nerfed a while back when he was strong, but when he was nerfed, Anubarak and some of the other tanks just became flat out better. And then when those tanks were nerfed, then ETC is like, it's my time back in the spotlight again. And so he basically is just everything you need in a tank. Once you get used to his lower end health pool, which you got to kind of play carefully around, he still does everything really well as a tank, and he has the very devastating mosh pit if used correctly and not interrupted.
If you use it, not like me. I feel like there's some ultimates that I'm absolutely horrible at using, and Mosh Pit is definitely one of them. I feel like it's one of the hardest to pull off, because not only do you have to find that perfect moment for you to catch as many people, or the right people that can interrupt it, but also your team has to be prepared and ready to follow up, because you're not doing any damage when you catch everyone in that Mosh Pit. But either way, a game changer for sure, and has been ever since Heroes came out. Okay, so we also had a patch drop today, and thankfully we did, or else we'd have a 40-minute show. So there's a few changes to Hanzo, Valera, Sergeant Hammer, Sylvanas, Brightwing, Tyrande, Blaze, and Sonya. So starting at the top of the list, Hanzo. Surprise, surprise. Maybe Blizzard watched HGC and were like, we got to do something about this guy, so let's just tweak him a little bit. Which is kind of funny, because he's one of those characters that is shining really heavily in HGC. However, he's only got a middling win rate, not even 50%, if you look at hot slogs. But anyways, what they did to them is they nerfed his basic attack damage, storm bow, and scatter, or ricochet damage, all by about 2%. Not a very heavy-handed nerf, but a nerf nevertheless. And then level 7, the talent that I think Bahgz was and Mystic were both talking about previously, sharpened arrowheads, where you got they decreased the armor reduction from 5 to 4, so you can only get a maximum armor reduction of 20 instead of 25 using that talent. So guys, what do you think about this? Is just Blizzard taking it easy, baby steps, because they don't want to nerf the hero to like a Medivh kind of state in your less coordinated play, but do the nerf at least enough so he can kind of be taking it down a notch in competitive? What are we seeing here? Mystic, let's start with you.
Okay, I think most of these are pretty good nerfs because he was dealing an absurd amount of damage, especially with that sharpened arrowhead. So I'm really glad that they nerfed that. I still think 20 might be a bit too high for level 7. I think level 7, you want to bring that to 15, if not 10, armor reduction on like your abilities. And the basic attack damage, stormbow, scatter arrow damage, nerf, I think was well received.
Yeah. Do you think it's gonna make much of a difference in competitive, or just his kit too strong there, Bahgz?
It's hard to say. I want to say no. I think that armor reduction, 20% more damage, with an armor reduction of 20 is still really strong, and I think that I'm not an analyst, but I don't think it's going to dramatically decrease the amount we'll be seeing him in competitive. No, I think he just has a strong kit. He does a lot of what Valor. He would have to do significantly less damage than Valor, I feel like, to flip-flop that back, because he brings a little bit more to the table than she does.
I could feel you were conflicted with that answer, too. Did a little humming and hawing before he came up with that. So it'll be interesting to see where he shakes out. Valera, thankfully, again, LiQuid's not here because Valera got... Well, I guess maybe this case, she got buffed a little bit. Turns out Blizzard's having a problem finding the sweet spot for Valera, because they buffed her. She was all of a sudden first ban material for a while up there with Garrosh. And then she got nerfed, and she got nerfed really hard into the ground, where she's the lowest win rate hero in the game. So Blizzard's like, you know what? We got to start buffing some stuff. So they ended up targeting her lesser used talents here, as opposed to giving her just like straight up more damage or adjusting anything on her kit. So I'm just going to go over the talents they adjusted here. Maybe we'll talk about them as we go. Level 1, Vigor. Again, these are mostly underpicked ones, so maybe even play Valera. You don't pick these very often. But Vigor, it's a passive ability. Passive energy regeneration increased from 2 to 2.5 per second. Combat readiness also got an increase, where you got physical armor, kind of like block, increased from 60 to 75. Level 4, Relentless Strikes. Sinister Strike energy reduction increased from 10 to 15. Level 7, Mutilate, got a damage bonus increase from 100 to 125 on her Q. And Fatal Finesse, damage gained per enemy hero hit on your W. This is a questing talents, increased from 3 to a maximum of 60 to 4 to a maximum of 80. And then, level 13, Blind on her W. Bonus blind duration increased from 2 to 2.5 seconds. That's on her stealth engage on her W. And then finally, level 20, Adrenaline Rush. Energy regeneration increased from 30 to 40 per second. Mystic, do you play a lot of Valera? Because I sure don't.
I play her on occasion.
And do you think this is going to bring her up in the right spots that she needs to be brought up in?
I wouldn't say this like fixes the problems, but I think it's a step in the right direction, because they didn't like up her, silence duration again.
Oh God.
Or anything. But yeah, these buffs to these other talents just kind of up her versatility and power a bit, but it doesn't like address the main problem.
When LiQuid was sick in bed today, I was talking to him on Discord, and he was like, yay, Valera got buffed. And I was like, well, is it really a buff, though? Because they just buffed her underperforming talents. What are you guys' thoughts on that? Because that's actually an interesting kind of question that was brought up there. Like, when you have a hero and there's talents that no one ever picks, like most of these talents are picked like less than 5-10% of the time. If you increase the numbers on those just a little bit to the point where maybe they're picked a little bit more. Is that really buffing a hero if it's not buffing their main build? What do you think, Bahgz? Do you think this is considered to be a buff? I guess technically it's a buff because you're buffing abilities, right?
Is it no, like, so I don't play Valeera enough to comment if it's like an overall hero buff, but I do want to like make a notation that I think as from like a game design and as like a fan of video game standpoint, I actually really like it when you do this as opposed to what traditionally it seems like they do, where they nerf the overpowered talents, right? So say like a hero's performing well and they're not like pub stomping everyone, but maybe they have a balance within the build issue where like certain talents are outperforming others and other talents are underperforming. It's kind of nice to see them bringing the underperforming talents up as opposed to just neutering the hero and taking what she does have work for her away. You can make the argument that it's probably what they should have done with Rag, because I really he completely got neutered because I just kept nerfing Q build, even though he had already been like nerfed enough to where he was balanced, and they could have just buffed his other abilities. But hey, I don't know. I don't get paid the big bucks for this. That's just my theory.
What do you think, Mystic? Do you like buffing the underperforming talents to add for talent diversity here?
Yeah, I really like buffing the underperforming talents. Like you said, if it's not enough, or if you just buff the underperforming talents where it's still not a choice to be picked really over the the quote unquote better talents, then it doesn't really do anything for the hero, right? But it always like gives them the chance to pick that talent if they want. So I think buffing underperforming talents are always a buff.
So on Valeera, are there any talents you want to put on the watch list here for ones that may have gotten buffed enough to become good or part of her standard build here?
I'd say Vigor is okay now. The blind duration, so that one is interesting because 2.5 seconds is a really long time, and that could be, if you want to use it like that, an indirect buff to Cassia as well, or anybody that uses like those blinds for stuff. It also means that you could potentially use it on Hanzo, because if he does have redemption max attack speed, right, then you can make it so that he misses like 2 auto attacks, or makes it so he can't auto attack for 2.5 seconds. So that's pretty good. The other ones, Mutilate, it's okay. Relentless Strikes, it's all right. You can spam your Qs a little bit more, but like Bahgz, I'm not like a Valeera main or anything, so these are just my speculations here.
Well, I guess we'll have to see how she shakes out. Sergeant Hammer also got some changes. She is highest or close to the highest win rate hero at most levels, except Masters. Surprise, surprise. So she got a couple changes to her kit here, or not her kit, to her talent tree. Just a couple nerfs. Regenerative Biosteel, level 4. Her healing was reduced from 15 to 10% of Sergeant Hammer's basic attack damage dealt while in siege mode. And a level 7 graduating range. The range was reduced from 1.1 to 1 per stack up to a maximum of 3 instead of 3.3. So I hate playing against Hammer. Full disclosure. Not because it's necessarily difficult to play against her, especially if you have the right comp to counter it, but it's just one of those things like Stitch's hooks or Garrosh throws that you constantly have to be like, okay, crap, this is the kind of game we're going to play where we got to worry about this. We got to try and coordinate the engage on the sieging up Hammer to deal with that. What do you guys like? Do you guys like Hammer in the game? She's one of the heroes that I'd be happy if they just took out of the game outright. Her and all of the stealthies, to be honest with you, I could just do without. Well, Bahgz, what do you think about Hammer? Do you like playing her? Do you hate playing against her? Do you like playing with her? What are your thoughts?
I've dabbled in my fair share of Hammer back in the day, and I've enjoyed her. I haven't touched her a lot since
I
the rework.
experimented with Hammer in college.
Exactly. So I haven't really touched her a lot since the rework, but I've enjoyed playing her in the past. It just feels like she's very comp dependent when you play her. So I don't unless I'm like, we're in like a, you know, we were like a 5-man trolls crew, like playing some unranked one night, and we built a comp around Hammer. I would enjoy playing her then. And so it's impressive to me that she has such a high win rate in Hero League. I guess if you're a really great Hammer, I guess it makes sense. You can make it work in certain situations. But playing against her, if you're playing against a comp that's like suited to like really well, you know, a really great protect the Hammer comp, like that's not fun at all, because it feels like it feels hopeless. Like we can't reach her, and she's just murdering everything, you know, from so far away.
Mystic, what do you think of when you see that Hammer being picked in your drafts there? Do you like it when there's a Hammer on your team? Do you like what she brings to the table to heroes?
I mean, when I have a Hammer on my team, I generally think like it's either going to be like a hit or miss. They could be a really good Hammer and like do a lot of damage and stay out of fights and whatnot, especially if, you know, there's not a comp built around her and then she still does really good. That just means like she's a really good Hammer. But then, you know, there's those other ones that just like instantly die. And so, yeah, like I said, that's hit or miss. As far as playing Hammer, I really like it, you know, when I play Hammer, like Bahgz said, have a comp built around you, because then you're just like, I just get to freely shoot everything. And then on the opposite side of the coin, if you're up against a Hammer comp, or even maybe if you're not up against a Hammer comp, but you have nothing to get to that Hammer, then yeah, you're just sitting there just getting shot over and over, which really sucks.
Well, maybe in the after show games today we'll have to play Protect the Hammer comp, see how that goes. Sylvanas is another one of those oppressive heroes, and she got tweaked a little bit as well. She's been worming her way into first ban material on some maps. And she's been identified by a lot of people as part of the snowball problem in the snowball meta we found ourselves in just like, you know, the pub leagues here that we play in. So she got a little bit of a nerf. She got her base maximum health and regen reduced by 2%. And then they targeted Shadow Dagger as well. The cooldown was increased from 11 to 12 seconds. And her level 4 Lost Soul, which would reduce the cooldown of this. The cooldown reduction per hero hit has been reduced from 1.25 to 1 second. So indirectly, too, that nerfs her ability to shut down buildings a little bit, because if you're relying on your W, it's not going to be up nearly as often. Now, talking about a Hammer problem, what about the Sylvanas problem? Is she a problem?
It's funny you say that. So she shouldn't be, right? But she seems to... I don't know. I've been running into matches where she is at my level, anyways, and it's extremely frustrating when you kind of like slip up a little bit in the early game, or maybe you just, your team's really not on the same page as to how to stop the Sylvanas, and it's just like it snowballs out of control, and it's really not fun to kind of like it's not fun to play against. The other side of that coin is when you draft the Sylvanas and you're like, all right, we're going to snowball this game in our favor, right? We're going to win that first objective, and it's all going to be all downhill from there, right? And it just you just feel like it's 4v5 because you never get that lead that you were supposed to get, and Sylvanas is really weak after that point. So it's like, I don't know. Obviously, the nerfs are designed to avoid the original argument I made, where she's just, you feel like you're being bullied. Like, it's just not fun.
Yeah, she seems really like a win more type hero. If you're ahead, it makes that lead oppressive because you feel like you're chasing around the map. You win an objective, it can get a lot more value than it would without her. But Mystic, what are your thoughts here in the levels that you've been playing in? Is Sylvanas as much of a problem? Do you have to chase her around the map as much as we do?
I mean, as far as when I play up against the Sylvanas, she tends to get blown up more often than not. But it is when, like, you're on a map that has, I don't know, the Zerg wave or a Punisher or something along those lines, that she really shines. And it's like really annoying because if they have a Sylvanas and they win one of those objectives, then you're like, well, we're going to lose this fort and maybe the keep wall and maybe the keep. And, you know, if we don't defend against it well enough, then, you know, maybe even the core at that point, right? So it's very, very snowbally. And from what I see Blizzard is doing here is that they're making it so it's more risky to pick Sylvanas to do that because they're reducing her maximum health and regen, which means she's squishier. And they're reducing the amount of team fight damage that she can do with the taking away with the dagger. cooldown.
Brightwing got a small little note here too. Bahgz is pretty excited about this because her base maximum health and regen was increased by almost 4%, which is not a small increase by any stretch. Bahgz, is Brightwing someone you're going to be picking up again as your main support?
Probably. I will probably replace Lucio with Brightwing. You know what? It's tough to say. Like, so I'm going to be obviously, I can be a little more, I don't have to balance my mana as much. And as well, I'll be a lot less squishier. Brightwing's biggest problem though is kind of like saving people from potential immediate death. She doesn't have a lot of burst healing. You're kind of just really reliant on unfocused damage and a lot of poke damage to just kind of continuously heal with your passive. So, but I don't know. I just really enjoy her kit and the utility she brings to the table, and that's a lot of fun for me. So, she might replace Lucio as my main support. Probably. Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited.
Excited, nevertheless. Tyrande. We haven't seen much of her recently, but maybe we'll, because she got an attack damage increase by 2.5%. I like playing Tyrande. Mystic, have you been playing much Tyrande? You think this is going to make her a bit more of a relevant hero again?
I mean, I feel like it does make her a little bit more relevant, but I don't know. Why would you choose Tyrande at this point when you got Hanzo, right?
Because you can one-shot Abathur across the map when you get to level 20 with your owl. That's why. I don't know. Tyrande's, I mean, she's got the range stun, which is great for stun chains. However, maybe that's where she needs to fall into place, is when you have that kind of stun chainy type or stun lock meta where she can contribute to that, because I imagine it's a little bit harder to hit, especially in the pro scene, when people are, a little bit more flexible and harder to hit in those kind of situations. So Blaze got a change as well. He came into the scene here, and we were predicting that he was going to be OP. Well, it turns out not quite so much. He had a horrible win rate, but he's been climbing steadily since release, which, I mean, it's typical what we see with heroes, especially the ones with low win rates on releases. People get used to them. You get the people that are dabbling falling out off of them. So they gave him some talent diversity improvements to try and combat this low win rate. Bunker got a health increase of 10%, not the laughable one of 5 health like last time, which I was told, by the way, it was actually a StarCraft joke, because Mystic, I'm surprised you didn't pick up on this. I guess StarCraft has had a lot of tweaks to Bunker over the years, and apparently those like minor tweaks to Bunker's health was a throwback to StarCraft and Bunker buffs.
Yeah, I think now that you mention it, it was a while ago, and I just slipped my mind.
Either way, Bunker got a health increase of 10%, and Combustion got a little bit of a change too, a little quality of life improvement. There's now a half-second window after casting Combustion where it cannot be canceled. So this is just to prevent the quick, if you press R twice by accident, canceling it right away. All right, level 4, Feeding the Flame. This is his Q cooldown reduction increased from 1.5 to 2 seconds. Level 7, Incinerator Gauntlets. Bonus damage increased from 50 to 70%. Crossfire, that's this Q, damage increased from 132 to 139. Grill and Kill, this is the damage bonus decreased from 25 to 20%. That was one of the more popular talents, why it was nerfed there. Level 13, Suppressive Fire, spell power reduction increased from 15 to 20% per stack. And Nano Machine Coating on this talent tier, attack speed slow now only applies to oil spills that are on fire, as opposed to just standing in the oil spills. And level 16, Juggernaut Plating, an activatable ability, gave you a shield bonus increase from 100 to 125 of the damage reduced while that's active. So, Mystic, what do you think of Blaze now? Is this going to change his talent diversity? This is one of those quote-unquote buff nerfs, because it was buffed to his underperforming ones, nerfed to his overperforming talents. Are we going to see more talent diversity now?
I mean, Incinerator Gauntlet, the bonus damage increased from 50% to 70%. That actually would make it, more usable, and with the nerf to Grill and Kill there. So you'd use it more for clearing waves now. It's more accessible. The Crossfire, it's okay. It's a little damage buff. Suppressive fire, the 15% to 20% per stack of spell power reduction. That's actually pretty good. The nanomachine coating, I don't know if I like this change because the attack speed slow only applies when the oil spills are when they're on fire, which means that it makes it a little more conditional. And I mean, it's not like catching the oil spill on fire was that hard, but it just makes it a little bit harder to use. The Juggernaut plating, pretty good against mages, so that's I consider taking that now more often.
So Incinerator Gauntlets didn't mention the bonus damage that you get is your basic attack damage to minions and mercenaries. So increasing that, the only problem with Incinerator Gauntlets as well is it has a side effect of automatically lighting your oil spills on fire with your auto attacks too, which is something you might not necessarily want to do, depending on what talents you pick. So that always struck me as an odd counter synergy potentially there. You might want that bonus damage, but you might not want the not being able to control when you light your oil on fire. And then suppressive fire, the spell power reduction on your Q, always struck me as odd as well, because it's not like you're going to be getting to that chromie with your Q to get that reduction of spell power, right? Like this is more for like the frontline people that rely on spell power, like your Kerrigans or your Thralls potentially that might affect.
Or Sonya.
Or Sonya too, yes. And Sonya, speaking of which, did get a little bit of a nerf as well. LiQuid is probably crying in a corner. Maybe that's why he's sick, because he was trying to one-trick Sonya up the bronze ladder. But now her basic attack damage is reduced by 4.5%. I know Sonya's got her W that does a significant amount of damage in her Q, but they also nerf Poison Spear at 7, reducing the bonus damage from 125 to 100% of Ancient Spear's damage. And then level 16, her survivability trait there, Nerves of Steel, the activatable one, the duration was reduced from 5 to 3 seconds. The shield amount was reduced from 30 to 25% of maximum health. However, the cooldown was reduced from 70 to 60 seconds. So Sonya got what I think is actually a fairly heavy-handed nerf here. What do you guys think about this one?
I agree. I play a lot of Sonya. She was the hero I played the most last season in Hero League, and currently so far the most in this season of Hero League. In the mines, the bronze, silver, gold mines, her spin to win doesn't get interrupted a lot, and she does a lot of things really well. So you are able to influence the match a lot more with her, and she was strong, which is why she got nerfed also. And I'm bummed about this. Poison Spear was pretty much a go-to almost. Like it was like 100% pick rate almost in her build. It helps you provide the burst damage that you need. It's a poison damage, but it helps you provide the burst damage that you need to really like wipe out squishies. And then she really hits really strong power spikes at 16 and 20 when she gets Nerves of Steel, and then she gets the armor talent at 20. Hardened Shield, yeah. So now Nerves of Steel is going to be a little bit more of a playmaker talent because it's not 5 seconds pop it for a team fight. It's 3 seconds more to pop it for like an ability that's coming to hit you that you're preparing for, right? It's weaker. And I mean, they did try to kind of justify it by dropping the cooldown on it, but from 70, the difference between 70, at least to me, 70 to 60 seconds is not much. That's still like once a team fight. It's regardless. It's not like twice a team fight, What
do you think, Mystic? Do you think Sonya's going to be falling out here a little bit?
Quite a bit, I think, just because, like you said, these nerfs are pretty heavy-handed, like 4.5% reduction on basic attack damage, and then the Poison Spear. I mean, that's pretty big. And then Nerves of Steel, which is the other pretty big go-to talent. I mean, 5%, but, that's still pretty big. And now instead of 5 seconds, like the duration dropped from 5 to 3, it becomes a duration where, if she pops it, you can back away for a little bit and then just attack her when the Nerves of Steel go down. Like 5 seconds is a duration where you can't do that, right? It's like if she's hitting you for 5 seconds, you're going to take a lot of damage. But 3 seconds is more manageable, where you can kite her for 3 seconds and then use all your abilities to go all in, and then she won't have that shield.
So who's the new one trick now to get out of those leagues there, Bahgz? Who are you going to be playing?
It's you know what? It's probably Greymane, but I'm not very good at Greymane. It's always been Greymane. Let's be real.
It always comes
He
back
just
to
does everything so well. It's just I don't play him well. So for me, I guess it'll be Brightwing, man. Bring Brightwing back.
Well, you'll have to report back after the next couple of weeks. So that's it for the patch. Now it's time for Mystic's Shakedown.
Mystic, I require service of you. I come to you as a friend, asking you to shake down this situation for me.
Okay, Mystic, shake it down for us, bud.
Okay, so this week I'm going to talk about playstyles. And so the 3 playstyles we have here are tank, support, and damage dealer. Now that may be pretty intuitive to a lot of you because you're like, all right, I play damage dealer, I'm going to play style as damage dealer, and I play support, playstyle support, same with tank, right? But here's the thing, while the roles that you pick for your hero are kind of set in stone, your playstyle is not. So, for example, like let's just say you're playing a game and you have an ETC tank. Now he goes in, your team does pretty good damage, but your ETC goes down, right? But you have a Sonya and Uther on your team. So Uther is a healer, right? But now since your tank went down, he can switch to off tank. And then Sonya, being, you know, pretty tanky as well, she's now the main tank. So she, instead of like diving their back line, can shift her focus from the back line over to your front line so she can defend you, like your squishies, from damage. So then she's shifting her playstyle from damage dealer to tank. Uther can as well, like he can heal from the front lines too. So he can switch his like positioning from back line to front line. So now he can play as off tank. So it's stuff like that that you can really change around your characters to, you know, fit the situation. So another example is, let's see here. We have a damage dealer, right? Like let's just say Greymane, okay? So support, I'm just going to say, like, not only is just healing, but it's peeling and stuff as well. So for Greymane, let's just say your tank and your off tank just dove the backline, right? Now their tank, let's just say Stitches or something, or no. Yeah, let's just say Stitches and he's just running at your backline, okay? So as Greymane, you can take the opportunity to run in and help your team dive, which is damage dealer, or you can shift your playstyle to more of a support playstyle where you turn around and start like burning down their Stitches. In which case, if you do that, you're taking the role of a more supporting role in where you're peeling for your backline. And then, you know, so that's all like playstyle that you can work with. So if you think about it, you can take most characters and shift their playstyles, and depending on what you do, you can either tank, support, or deal damage. And I think it's really important to know like how to tank, support, and deal damage, because if you apply it to other characters, you can have them fulfill holes that, you know, your teammates or your teammates' heroes might be lacking, and just fill in for those.
Bahgz, the things that we don't think about in our leagues that Mystic thinks about in his, eh?
Right? It's that was really, for some reason the word in my head is metaphysical, but that is not it. That was here we go, the intangibles, right? So these aren't things that are tracked on a stats sheet, right? These aren't the things that are very obvious that hit you in the face as things you want to do. Like when I play Sonya, and I have a good example to follow up on this, to follow up your great points there, Mystic, is when I play Sonya, like I am, for lack of better expression, I'm balls to the walls. I'm trying to dive the back line and just like two-shot people with a Q and a W, right? And I kind of played Dahaka the same way, and I shouldn't. And I had a match where I lost because there was someone low, and I chose to continue to dive instead of turning around, because we had no peeler at the time for our 2 squishies, and we had a Li Ming and someone else really squishy that they were playing their role really well, but they were being heavily dived by a Twin Blades variant. And up until that point in the game, I had done a good job of landing tongues and body blocking and keeping the variant off our squishies and letting them do their job, which is to, you know, poke down the enemy team. And that particular fight, I let the squishy low health target right in front of me tempt me into trying to kill them and stop healing, and it cost us the fight. And it's funny, it's that it's picking the wrong path to go down in that moment is I guess it's decisions like that separate people from being really good at the game and bad.
Yeah, it's tough to break out of that tunnel vision. We all get it too. Like, you're chasing that hero, you're like, if we just catch them, we can kill them, right? But then you overextend, you chase a little too far, they get to the rest of their team, or they might be alone for, you know, a second or two, and you kind of miss that opportunity before the rest of the team gets there. And just being able to identify the situations, or in your team fight, like Mystic's saying, being able to shift your role when need be and be a lot more fluid and dynamic with how you're playing is definitely a next level tactic that I think that you can develop if you just take a step back and make sure you're not always trying to do the same thing, no matter what the situation. Cool. Well, I guess we can end the show here. Bahgz, successful application for LiQuiuD's job, I think. You did a great job. Thanks for coming on the show. Thanks, everybody, for listening to the Nexus Trolls, the Heroes of the Storm podcast. We stream this live on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/trollsgg, every week on Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. We were a little bit later this week because of some scheduling issues. Bahgz, where can people find you?
Guys, you can follow me on Twitter at BahgzHGC. I tweet out pictures of my dog. I actually have some sweet pictures on my phone of her going through her bark box that she got a couple days ago. I haven't had a chance to tweet them out. I was super busy today after I woke up. That they're going to get posted probably tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. Great pictures of my cute dog on there, as well as Heroes Esports news and my thoughts and comments and concerns. As well, you can follow me on Twitch. I stream regularly. I have a schedule. I stick to it. It's pretty good. It's been really entertaining. Recently hit affiliate status. It's twitch.tv/Bahgz. It's mostly hero streaming, but I do occasionally do some variety streams where I'll stream like the PS4 or like some city builder games or something. So
I need to get a dog so I've got more things to tweet about. If you're looking for LiQuiuD, he will be back next week. He isn't actually getting supplanted by Bahgz, but Bahgz, thanks for filling in. You can find LiQuiuD at LiQuiuDGG. It's LiQiuDGG on Twitter. Mystic, how about you, bud? Where can people find you?
You can find me at Mystic Shroud on Twitter.
You can find me at DazHots, because @Daz was probably taken within the first few days of Twitter being released. Thanks to all our Patreon supporters. If you like the show and you're looking for a way to support us, you can do so over at patreon.com/trollsgg. And we want to thank again, shout out to our newest patron, Matt R. Thank you so much again for supporting the show. You can subscribe to our show on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever you happen to find your podcasts online. We're likely there. You can also visit our website at trolls.gg/TheNexusTrolls to watch this and past shows, along with past video streams, which can also be found on our YouTube channel. For announcements about the show and general Here's the Storm news, you can follow us on Twitter at TheNexusTrolls or at TrollsGG as well for the network's Twitter. And if you want to hang out with the Trolls and us and the Trolls community in-game, you can /join TrollsGG in-game or join our Discord channel where there's awful lot of chatter these days. Trolls.gg/Discord for more information there. We'd love to chat with you. And finally, if you need to get in touch with us, the best way is by email at TheNexusTrolls at TrollsGG. And we'll probably be sticking around for some after-show games today. For anyone interested, just come into our channel in game /joining in TrollsGG. Hopefully we'll see you there. But Bahgz, Mystic, thanks again for hosting with me. Everyone, thanks for listening. Have a great week.
Have a great night.
Now the bumper, so I cut off your peace out. I can't let that go without it.
Oh well, I didn't do it today. I forgot. Well,
we're still live. I'm giving you a couple of seconds to say it here.
Oh, peace out.
There it is.